I want you to do me a favor.
Yeah, sure.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Pain with control.
When you wrote Fight Club, you tapped into something. It was really fascinating for me as someone who's been involved in martial arts my whole life, and I've understood the cathartic release of violence.
Sometimes all you could hear were the flat, hard packing sounds over the yelling. You weren't alive anywhere like you were there.
But I never saw it articulated the way you did, and you made it enticing for a thinking person.
Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need.
You sort of opened up these doors of understanding.
We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives.
For someone who maybe had frustration or had some pent-up rage or had some angst that just was not going to get out any other way, and then you wrote about it.
All been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact. We're very, very pissed off.
It's like, oh, he hit some nerve that nobody really hit before.
And it's not a nerve that gets hit very much. My classic thing is that there are so few social model novels or stories for men. For women, you know, every season there's a new Joy Luck Club, a new How to Make an American Quilt, a new Traveling Sisterhood of the Yagaha Pants, whatever. Just all these different models in which women can come together and talk about their lives. And if you're a man, you've got either Fight Club or you have the Dead Poet Society. And that is really it. So we don't have a lot of narratives that depict to men a role or a kind of script in which to come together and talk about their shed.
That what a man looks like?
Self-improvement is masturbation. Now self-destruction.
Another thing is that need for really rough play. And a lot of my friends, they brag about how badly their kids hurt them. Oh my gosh, my daughter came at me the other day. I had no idea how strong she was. She pulled my arm out of the socket. And they're proud. They're proud that their kid can play that rough and is growing up that strong. You know, we've kind of fallen away from this idea of consensual rough play. And I think Fight Club resonated with that a lot.
Wait, this is crazy. You want me to hit you?
That's right.
What, like in the face?
Surprise me.
This is so fucking stupid. Motherfucker!
And also the idea that there needs to be a secondary father in men's lives. You're born, if you're lucky, with a biological father that you do not choose. And that is the nurturing, loving father that you eventually kind of have to reject. But in doing so, you have to choose a new father. That father by choice typically is a minister or a teacher or a drill sergeant or a coach, one of those fathers. And you kind of put yourself in apprenticeship to the secondary father.
Too young. Sorry. If the applicant is young, tell him he's too young. Old, too old, fat, too fat. If the applicant then waits for 3 days without food, shelter, or encouragement, he may then enter and begin his training.
And you have to sort of consign your life to the secondary father and agree to learn what they're going to teach you, just like in Karate Kid. And that is getting harder and harder and harder to find.
Think this is a game? You're too young to train here. End of story. Now quit wasting our time. Get the fuck out of here.
Get off the porch!
Sooner or later, we all became what Tyler wanted us to be. I'm gonna go inside and I'm gonna get a shovel.
So Fight Club was also depicting a new form of the secondary father with all these kids that were showing up on the doorstep of this ramshackle old house.
Got 2 black shirts,
Sir.
2 pair of black pants,
Yes, sir.
1 pair of black boots,
Sir.
2 pair of black socks,
Sir.
1 black jacket,
Sir.
$300 personal burial money.
Yes, sir.
All right. You're too old, fat man. Your tits are too big. Get the fuck off my porch.
You are apprenticing yourself to somebody that you're going to do all this grunt work for, but in exchange, you're going to learn a kind of really master skill at something.
You are not special. You are not a beautiful or unique snowflake. You are the same decaying organic matter as everything else.
It's a way of mastering yourself as you master this other thing. But it is that existentialistic moment where you realize that you have to sacrifice your youth for something. You're not going to live forever, and you've got to give your life to something.
Like a monkey ready to be shot into space. Space monkey. Ready to sacrifice himself for the greater good.
So there were just so many aspects of men's lives that were not being addressed when Fight Club came out. And it sort of reinvented so many of those things that had fallen by the wayside.
When you write a story like that, how much of it do you plan out in advance?
I might plan out up to the end of the second act. At the moment of greatest crisis, this will happen. You know, in Fight Club, the moment of greatest crisis is going to be when everyone in the support groups figures out that this guy is lying to them. And they're all given the choice of either accepting him for his transgressions or rejecting him. I typically know that the second act is going to end with a transgression being revealed. But beyond that, I don't want to know, because I want the story to complete itself with its own momentum at that point. And if it doesn't surprise me beyond the second act, then it's not going to surprise the reader.
Stop trying to control everything and just let go.
It really comes down to what purpose reading and writing serves in people's lives. And most people, they want reading to be a comforting activity. They want to be able to read a book and then fall asleep, knowing the detective will apprehend the killer by the end of the book, that things will end very well. In a way, they want to be bored or lulled by the book. Not so many people really want to be kind of confronted by books. You know, I loved writing that line in Fight Club where Tyler and Marla have sex for the first time. And the most romantic thing that Marla can say is, I want to have your baby. So what is the inverse? So, of course, Marla turns to him and she says, I hope I got pregnant because I really want to have your abortion. And that's the line that the movie studio went around and around. And even Brad Pitt said, you know, my mom's going to see this movie. I don't want her to see this line. And they shot that scene with so many different substitute lines. And then finally Fincher wrote the line. And Helena Bonham Carter says,
My God, I haven't been fucked like that since grade school.
And at that point, 20th Century Fox said, can we switch it back to the abortion line? Until you get some pushback, you don't feel like you're pushing hard enough. And so pushback is not a bad thing. It's just kind of it's proof that you're doing your job. I tell a classic anecdote. After I had read the gut story at an event, a woman came up, and she was a middle-aged woman. She was about my age. And she said, I really love that you read that story about how you got your anus prolapsed while masturbating in a swimming pool, which is not my story, but I'm the one that read it. I'm the one that they're picturing in this horrendous situation. And she says, since you can tell that story, I want to tell you a story. When she was 7 years old, she was in second grade, and she was in a little organization called the Brownies, which is a precursor to the Girl Scouts. You wear a brown dress, little brown hat. You get these little merit badges. And she said, one day I had a stomach ache, and my mom kept me home from school. And we had this heating pad. It must have been in the 1960s. And this heating pad had this vibrating function. And she put me face down on this heating pad on my stomach. And I fell asleep. And while I was asleep, this vibrating, warm heating pad must have slid down between my legs. She says, because I woke up with the most amazing feeling. A feeling like I'd never felt before. Oh my God, it felt so good. Next time it was my turn to host the brownies. I said, brownies, you've got to try this heating pad. And she says, all the brownies, they turned the heating pad on, the vibrating heating pad, and they rode it like a pony all afternoon. And she said, it was like Sex in the City for 7-year-old girls. They could not get enough of this heating pad. And they were all riding this heating pad, and they had a great time. And she said, and for the first time in my life, I was the most popular girl in my class. And I was the girl that all the girls wanted to play with. And for every brownie troop meeting, it was at my house. And I was the leader. Until the day that my mother came home from work early. And she caught us with a heating pad. And she sent the other brownies home. And she whipped the cord out of the wall. She just ripped it out of the socket. And she started to beat me with it. And she beat me with that cord. And she beat me. And she said, you fucking piece of shit. You dirty whore. What kind of a fucking whore am I raising? You whore. And she beat me and she beat me. This woman, who's my age now, she says, I have not had an orgasm since I was 7 years old. But if you can tell that swimming pool story about how you got hurt, jacking off underwater, she says, I can tell my heating pad story. And I can tell that story until I can make it funny. And then maybe someday I can go back to my mom and I can say, do you remember that heating pad we used to have? And it'll be complete.
Holy shit.
And so see, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create the opening for people to tell these stories that they never thought that they could tell. Because that's the way in which they're going to resolve these stories. And they're going to master these stories.